Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me today?
Hello, Simon. I can hear you.
Excellent.
Yes, I'm currently sharing my screen, but I'll just stop so that you can start your presentation.
Wonderful. Just let me know when you'd like me to get going.
Right now is fine.
Right now? Right, that's fine. I shall do that exactly now.
Do take your time with it. That's fine. You schedule at 5 p.m. your time. So that,
Excellent. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for turning up, and I'm very excited to be able to present to a bunch of users who know way more about LaTeX than I do, and really happy to share some examples of the different ways that I use LaTeX in combination with data science workflows in my daily job. So that's going to be quite exciting. If I turn that camera on, I don't know if you can see my camera. Okay, so where this started, my title is Director of Innovation at Digital Science. And one of the things that's part of my job is to look at the products that we have. So Overleaf for document writing, Figshare for sharing research data sets, and Dimensions for analyzing and describing the research landscape, and really look at how we can join those things together and do interesting and new things with them. And certainly one of the things I've been looking at in doing my work is how we can progress workflows around reproducible data science or reproducible science. And so we might start with an output that I was most recently working on. So this is a report I did most recently on how COVID-19 is changing research culture. So I might just quickly download that. Oh, there it is. So you can see it's a report. It's very nicely formatted. It's using our style, and the entire report was written in Overleaf. But from a reproducible science point of view, what we've done is we've made sure that every figure you can get to, every figure in every table, you can get a link back to the data that's shared in Figshare, and you can actually get back from the Figshare data to the code. And this reflects a philosophy that I've been building up on, is how can we really connect the code and the analysis we do to the end product. And so if you see this notebook that's linked to the data, you'll see that a little bit under here is a little command that says figure to Figshare and push through to Overleaf. And you can see that it's doing some work to get that done. And in fact, not only is it pushing it across to Figshare, it's creating a DOI. So I've been working on these sorts of workflows for a little while, and then we had a chance to be introduced to a company called Gigantum, which provides a really interesting way of managing all of your data science workflows. And one of the things that it does really nicely is that as you build your Jupyter Lab notebooks, it's actually committing them into source control all of the time, so that you've got really nice source control over the top of it. They're a nice bunch of people, and in talking to them, I showed them my spaghetti code for making all of this work in the background, and they actually took a look at it and politely said, well, we can actually do a little bit better in terms of integrating Gigantum with Overleaf. So what I'll be able to do today is to not show you my spaghetti code, because no one wants to look at that, but show you some code that's been written by Gigantum to make the workflow between data science notebooks and Overleaf work really quite nicely. So if I start with my example notebook, so this is Gigantum. It's where I manage all of my Jupyter notebooks. It's by no means essential to what I'm talking about today, but it is the way I manage my work. So I do lots of consultancy projects, lots of innovation thought pieces. So each piece of work that I do is bundled up into a project. And so if we look at a project and we open it up, there we are. The project's broken down nicely into code, input, and output folders. And I think I've reset this one. So we start off with, so I've got my data science notebook. I'm going to do some data science in it. And I want to almost immediately start putting that into my Overleaf notebook. So I will just go and create a new notebook from my template. So I will make a copy of this one. Oops, where did it go? That again. It's disappeared because I'm in my demonstration folder. So I'll go back out to all of my projects. There it is up the top. And just for neatness, I'll put it back in the demonstration folder. There we go. So now I've got my demonstration folder. And as you see, as it compiles, what you'll notice is it's the house style template that we use. So for all of our work, oh, I've copied the wrong one. Let me do that one more time. It must be this one that's blank. It's got nothing in it. Okay. There we go. So it's the house style. It has the front page on it, and all of the different things, which means that I don't need to worry about choosing fonts or adjusting my margins or everything else. All of that's set up for me. So whilst that's compiling on that side, I'll start my data science project on the left here. So I will import all the libraries that I want to use. So I am just using some standard matplotlib libraries and some Seaborn libraries and pandas. And I'm going to show you two examples. So one is using custom maps, because I think one of the important things about doing it this way is that you can have ultimate control over your data visualizations, and you can push those into Overleaf templates, and you're not limited by what you want to do by overly simplified controls, and some basic examples as well. So this step here, this GL equals gigaleaf, is the step that joins my notebook on the left to my Overleaf template on the right. It's going to ask me for my Git URL for this document, so I'll get that. Copy it across. And then my Overleaf email. And I don't know what it's called, so I'll just type it myself. And my password. Right. There we go. So it's now creating a Git clone of the Overleaf project in my Gigantum project. So I can see that in my output folder here, in my untracked folder, because there we go. So I can see my project here, and it's got some tables. And if we go across to the Overleaf project now has those tables in it as well, which is lovely. Okay, so I'll do some data science. I've got some data from that project I showed you about before on COVID-19. one of the really striking things about COVID-19 research, I've never seen this happen before, is that you could actually track on a daily basis the amount of new publications that were being produced through about COVID-19 research. So this is actually a chart on a daily basis on the number of publications coming into Dimensions each day about publications through 2020. And you can see it's about, on average 1,000 a day, which is pretty mind-blowing. So I've loaded my data. I've created my my graph. So I had a little function up here. That's what my graph is doing. And then I'm just going to link that to my Overleaf template. So I'm going to link the image that I've saved to Overleaf with this Overleaf link image command. And then I'm going to synchronize that across. Just written a little helpful function. So the way that I can now, Overleaf has helpfully wrapped things in subfiles. So the only thing I need to do is to copy that across into my Gigantum project. So click the new section here. Called show off. And I'll put my document in there. And I'll just make the compiler put it into fast mode. The front page of our template is done using Xcoffins and seems to slow things down quite a lot. So if we take out the front page, it will speed up. And there we go. So I've got my graph directly created from my notebook into my Overleaf template. And if you're thinking, why do I need Gigantum and Gigantum and all of these things to do GitHub synchronization from Jupyter Notebooks into Overleaf, you would be correct. You can do it just using Python's Git libraries. So I have an example in this project. And this project is, I'll share with you, make available to you. To just use Git, the workflow would be something like the following. So you put in your username and password in the environment. You'd need a little ask pass Python script to handle the authentication, and then you would do something like that, which would give you allow you to put the figure over here, and then you would obviously need to use all of the LaTeX commands to actually insert that into your document. But so Gigaleaf is just putting a wrapper around something that's already fairly straightforward to do. One of the nice things that that Gigaleaf does with the inserting the image, apart from putting it in a subfile and wrapping up all of the labels and the captions functions as well for you, is that as well as the data, so you can see there's the PDF we've just produced, it also puts some associated metadata along with the project. So if we go across here into the Jupyter Notebook, we can see what that metadata looks like. Which is super nice. So it tells us when the data was run relative to the hash. We've got the label and also the Gigantum relevant path. So there's the document, there's the data path in Gigantum in Overleaf, but actually this image lives in the output folder here. So that's nice to tie it all back. And hopefully if Gigaleaf was to take off as a package, you could extend this with all sorts of interesting information as well. Okay, so we've got our graph, and now that it's connected, file outline. Now it's connected, it's really easy to make changes to it. So one of the things that is commonly the case is you'll do all your work, and then the communications people say, that's great, but can you change the color of the graph to meet our templates, or you've made a spelling mistake? And now that it's all synced up, it's as easy as just making the change in your notebook, and then everything gets synced across. So as simple as that. And now we've got our graph changed in our Overleaf template, which is highly useful. Wasn't quite a clean one. I already had that graph in there. Doesn't matter. Okay, so one of the things, and the reason why this worked was that because it wasn't a clean one, I'd forgotten that I needed to make sure you have these packages inserted in the preamble of your sheet. So if you're setting up for a new sheet, a new document, you just need to copy across those and pop them in your preamble, which I assume they are there. Yes, they are, across in the top there. Okay, so I've talked about making simple charts. The advantage of doing this is you're free to make as tricky graphs as possible, and this is perhaps the trickiest visualization that I can come up with, which is a collaboration graph based on geo coordinates that we have in dimensions. So we're looking at this graph will show us the research collaboration profile of different institutions in the UK, and we'll map them onto a map of the UK using geolocations, and then we will link them together to show their collaboration linkages using a few different things. So it's quite a striking map that you come up with. So the edges are linked together using edge bundling. So quite nicely, the edge bundling seems to replicate the major highways of the UK, which was a nice side effect of the graph. So quite pleased with that, I have to say. I will now be able to copy this graph across to my, if I quickly navigate back. I have to say the new features of Overleaf, being able to quickly zip around the file outline, is very nice. Okay, so if we just recompile that, we can get our graph coming through on the other side. Here we go. And we'll just add a table as well. Some reason I've done something strange to that first table, so I'll just take the second one. There we go. Grab our table. And put it in here. So this actually, for me, this functionality is much more than just a nice demonstration of how you might connect up data science workbooks to this every day. So at the moment, I've got two projects that I'm using this functionality on. One is a research paper that I'm writing looking at the uptake of profiles by researchers, and just seeing how far we've got to go in different countries and in different research classifications. So I can show you what that's looking like, I think, over here. No, that's, no, or maybe I can. Yes, so we've got, so you can see there's some graphs over here with these charts in it, and I have started to add them to my research paper, which won't take anywhere near as long to compile as our house paper. But here, this is a nice example. So instead of using now the our house research format, I'm using the Frontiers format. So you can see all of these graphs and data coming through, and these in fact have come through using Gigantum as well. the other thing that's nice about doing this is that you can start to build the collaboration around writing your article far earlier in the process. So if you think about what you might do, publish the graphs and the data set, and about that point you can start writing the article around it. Whereas with Overleaf and this sort of connection, I can start pushing the graphs and the tables right into an Overleaf document right from the beginning. And that means that I can start collaborating with other authors on the paper right from the get-go. So that's a super nice thing to do, because it means that you can iterate your data science as you iterate the narrative around the paper that you're writing or the document that you're writing. And in fact, in consultancy, it helps me as well. So what I'll do in consultancy is I will start producing the data science outputs and the tables, and I'll put them into the Overleaf document, and I will share that document with the clients that I'm working with from the get-go, so that they can start commenting on the data and looking at the data inside the notebook as we go on. And so it's been quite nice to see that they can use even the Overleaf comments functionality and those sorts of things as they go on, which is super useful. In fact, I've started to use Overleaf not just for pushing things through to images and tables, but if there's CSV options that I want to share with them as well, there's link. You can link CSV outputs as well using Gigantum, so that you can actually have Overleaf as the repository for not just looking at the work, but any associated data with that work as well, which I think is quite advantageous. Anything else that I thought that I might be interesting to tell you? I think that's more or less what I wanted to come and show you. It was basically a super nice integration between doing data science and integrating that into your Overleaf or into your LaTeX workflows. I think that's it certainly helps me on a daily basis to do those things. I just get back to our demo project. That'd be a nice place to end. So with that, I think I will stop talking and just see if we can have a discussion about this approach, or if there are different approaches to doing reproducible science, with especially that are centered around doing data science, or what you would like to see in this sort of workflow that would help you with what you're doing.
Thank you, Simon. If there are any questions from the audience, you can't talk, but you can write a message on the chat, and then I can give you permission. I can give you permission to use your microphone. So let's do that.
Yeah, I think Jesus has asked a question about documentation to code, and I will quickly get the code and put that in the chat for you right now. There we go. So you can find the example that I went through on the Gigantum hub, which is gigantum.com, which is a very nice interface over a GitHub repository. For most projects, you can launch it in Jupyter Lab, but I got a little bit too clever with my examples, and because they use some of the GeoJSON libraries for visualization, which are very heavy in terms of downloads and dependencies, something goes wrong when you try and launch it live. But in theory, you can actually launch projects here without having to download them. But you can navigate to the project, download the code from here, and you can have a look and inspect what I'm doing. If you're not using Gigantum, then just using Git would be a great place to start. It's very easy to get up and running with Gigantum. Basically, Gigantum actually runs on top of Docker. on your computer, so you can have completely Dockerized images of your data science projects, which I find super handy as well.
There's another question by Marcellus in the Q&A. Are there any Overleaf features that you think are useful, helpful?
So in doing the, so yeah, it's probably nice to talk about the Overleaf features that that are certainly helpful in this one. The first one, I guess, implicitly is the fact that we're treating Overleaf as a Git project. So the first thing that's nice is being able to integrate your project just via Git. So that's a super nice a part of Overleaf that we've been using on that. The second one, I guess, is that we've noticed when we're doing the collaborations with clients is that I've been encouraging them to use the comments feature so that they can actually read through the document and remind me this doesn't make sense, or something I normally do is the first time I put data through, I haven't paid much attention to what my columns are called, and so there'll be blah underscore blah because they come from database tables, and it's a good way of in the document as I'm working on to remind me of the things that I've been working on. That's been a super useful function there. Apart from that, yeah, Overleaf tends to work as it says on the tin. It's been quite nice. I do work mostly. I'm used to working now in the source pane when I'm writing, but I do find switching to the rich text for writing the narrative around things super helpful, and certainly in client engagements that aren't necessarily tech savvy, being able to present them with a collaborative, technical but easy to access document, the rich text is quite useful there. Yeah, so importing tables with pandas, that's a really good point, because I should read out the question. Hazel says, is there anything else I can do with Python and LaTeX? Maybe create a script to solve equations with SymPy or import tables with pandas. In fact, importing the tables with pandas was exactly what we were doing with this one. So pandas now has some LaTeX features associated with it. So this to LaTeX function, if we take our data frame here and just put to LaTeX after it, then these are the sorts of options that we have. So if I just probably bring up pandas to LaTeX. And this is kind of new, so it's probably in the last couple of releases that pandas has had these features. But you can see all of the different tables features that you can have access to here. So you can use long tables, you can turn that on. You can specify your formatters, whether or not you want headings, column spaces. It's starting to be the expose all of the different things that you might want to do with pandas. So it's super useful. The other thing that I have started doing is not just importing tables and images, but just numbers. So if I'm calculating a number, instead of having that number just typed into my document, I'll use a similar sort of process to just push the number through so that it's a bit of a cloud job. I'll be importing a sub file that is just one number, but it's a way of making all of my calculations happen on the data science side of it and just be passed through to the notebook. And it means that if I do update my data, or I come back to a report that I need to run in 6 months' time, I can run all of the scripts and be sure that I've caught all of the data, or all of the numbers in the text, as well as the tables and the images as well.
Thank you, Simon. Are there any more questions, comments, or wishes?
I think I have a couple. I see that panelists have no way to put new question in Q&A, so I probably will say them if you don't mind. I have a couple of questions. First, there are nowadays it's a very it's considered a good thing to do is to put at the end of your paper a link to your data and code. Do I understand it correctly that I can just publish the link to the GitHub repository with a notebook, and it would be something people are going to use? And I hope that it will not have somewhere my credentials. I really don't want to publish my Overleaf password this way.
Exactly. So that is a very good question, and the Gigantum team have gone to some trouble to make sure that when you type in your password, it's not being stored in the part of the project that's being synchronized to Git. So if we have a look here and output, these untracked folders are not synchronized to Git. And so if we go down here, I think I won't click on that because that probably is my credentials information, but it is done in such a way that you can you don't disclose your password as you publish your file, which I have to say, when I started using Gigantum, I was very want to do, because it's doubly tricky with Gigantum, because every your notebook is actually being committed live, not live back to Git, but to your own local Git repository, so that you need to get into the discipline of not putting your passwords even on your data science pages, because they then become part of the record of your work.
Yeah. And my second question is, I understand that you clone data from your Gigantum notebook into Overleaf. Sometimes in data science we have huge files with so I wonder, and you can use LFS with Git to store all these gigabytes of data, but I wonder if I try to connect it to Overleaf, whether I will get in trouble with your servers and things like this.
Yeah, so yes, big files are a problem, and I probably wouldn't, it probably isn't a great use case to need to push them over to Overleaf, because then how would you render them? But so the interesting thing is there are actually two Git repositories that are being connected together in this workflow. So we've got one that's down here at the Overleaf level, here in Untracked, that's our Overleaf one. And then this encompassing project here, which is being tracked on the data science side and committed back to the Gigantum GitHub project. It still has, if you can possibly avoid it, you probably never want to source control large outputs, just because they just start to blow up the size of your project immensely. So the solution that Overleaf has to that is, sorry, the Gigantum has to that, is to actually put large files that aren't necessarily part of the project per se, but what you need to be working on in the untracked folder, so that you don't put them through. They are working on a separate thing about source controlling file objects, and in the messy code, this is my version over here. I do have workflows that push the data out to Figshare and create DOIs for it as well. But unless you're a glutton for punishment, I wouldn't necessarily use my code, because well, it's not wonderful. It does work, but it's not wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Simon. Are there any more questions? Well, if there are no more questions, there's going to be a short break before we start the next talk, which is in about 10 minutes.
Oh, well, I'm very happy to donate a short break to everybody. That sounds like a nice thing to have.
It is.
Well, it was wonderful to meet you all, even remotely, and hopefully I'll be back and to see what you're up to next year.
I surely hope you will. Hopefully it will be in person in upstate New York.
Oh, that would be lovely.
So if you, do you mind not sharing your screen any longer?
My screen. There we go.
Thanks.